Swear I used to be better at this. So much time has passed since the very first time I picked up an NES controller. I've created many great memories and shared many of them with friends. There's no denying Mega Man shaped my youth. This series took so many twists and turns over the years from the X series to the Legend series, and between that time, I grew up. And as I did, so did Mega Man. I've always wanted to share my experiences with many of my favorite franchises. I've danced around the idea of doing reviews now for quite a long time, and at this point, I'm not getting any younger. Yet if it wasn't for Mega Man, I would never have found the inspiration creatively to discover the outlet needed to express myself. So with that said, I'd like to begin this Mega Man journey with you all today. So where to begin? Well, I think I have an idea. My very first experience with video games was somewhat playing my family's Atari 2600. I vaguely remember playing Atari's extremely bad ports of Pac-Man and Donkey Kong on our old computer that played some of those old floppy disk games, such as Spy Hunter and Pole Position. It wasn't until my family brought home the Nintendo Entertainment System that my life as I know it would forever be changed. As time went on, I watched my brother play Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt. He would trade tapes later with people back and forth and would bring home different games from time to time, but it wasn't until I stayed over a childhood friend's house a few years later that I would be treated to Mega Man for the very first time. I was around 8 years old and asked my parents to drop me off at a new friend's house named Jason after school. Lo and behold, he owned a copy of a game called Mega Man 3. I sat patiently watching Jason play, hoping for a turn. The game looked incredible, with larger than life sprite work. Enemies that had unique qualities, but similar robotic traits, such as the variety of Mets I would encounter venturing forward. These enemies will come in a variety of shapes and sizes, notorious for popping their heads out at you at every chance they had, making your speedrun a living hell. Large robotic beasts that would shoot projectiles, and at times, tiny robotic offspring at you that had unique patterns and movements. What exactly was I playing? All I know was I would need to master these enemies and their skills to continue onward throughout the stages to come. I would go home that night with no real concern, only to hear more talk of this Mega Man at the playground in months to come. Talks would break out regarding which game in the series was better, Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 3. Even during my elementary school years, many regarded Mega Man 2 as the best of the franchise. As years passed, it was clear that I needed to play more Mega Man, and a few years later, I would be able to do just that when I purchased my own Mega Man games. But you mentioned this was a Mega Man 1 review, right? Well, I'm getting there, but if not for the Mega Man lore and playground talks of my youth, I would never have seeked out the franchise to begin with, and every story does need some good lore to it. I eventually picked up many of the Mega Man games for the Nintendo, but it wasn't until early high school that I went back and played Mega Man 1. Why not? I had beaten every game in the series except this one. It's undeniably the most brutal and unforgivable in the mainline series, but that's mainly because it's so primitive in nature. It was the very first of its kind, and Mega Man didn't have all of his power-ups and skills he acquired throughout the various games. This game has some of the most challenging robot masters, and although they are a very first of their kind, they still hold a lot of charm to them. Well, they technically aren't robot masters because they don't really officially don the Wily DWN numbers, but we will get into that at a later time. But what I'm trying to say is this game does not hold your hand. So with that being said, how did the Mega Man franchise that is now so beloved by millions of fans manage to become a household name, bringing us the Blue Bomber we have known to love so fondly today? In the year 2000X, Thomas Light and Albert Wiley attended the Robot Institute of Technology. It is at this very university the two men begin their studies in the field of electronics, where they instantly excel within their field. Graduating with his PhD, the now roboticist Dr. Light, alongside Dr. Wiley, uses their research to build a laboratory with the intention to use computer science and technology to benefit all of mankind for a greater tomorrow. As Light's overall potential grows, he continues to make advancements in the field of robotics, and as a result, designs his very first prototype humanoid robot, a humanoid robot capable of independent thoughts and actions. Robots that were not only human-like in design, but those that utilize artificial intelligence within. Taking the blueprint from one of his earliest creations, the Sniper Joe robot, he would begin building his very first of his humanoid robots capable of AI, and thus Proto Man was born. Now, up until this point, the events of Mega Man 1 have not taken place. However, I believe it's important to establish some of the events leading up to it. So to add, I'd also like to somewhat lead into the events of Mega Man Powered Up, so we can get not only a bit of the Proto Man backstory, but also a complete picture of what made these chain of events occur in the first place. Although Proto Man was truly self-aware and was designed with his own sense of independence, he held resentment towards Dr. Light due to his technological flaws. As an early build, Proto Man was designed with a faulty power generator, and as a result, misunderstood Dr. Light's intentions. The fear of Proto Man being repaired would ultimately lead him to losing his own identity and individuality, so much so that the guy decides to run away from Dr. Light's lab, which we will ultimately go into detail in a later installment. With his technological breakthroughs with Proto Man, Dr. Light wanted to develop a pair of robots for his next endeavor, assuming this might fix some of the independency issues he had with Proto Man. So he develops a tiny lab technician named Rock and a household robot named Roll. With the blueprint set, he begins work on 6 master robots, placing more emphasis on the industrial assistants. With the help from his lab partner Dr. Wily, these 6 new master robots were designed to oversee the smaller underdeveloped robots. However, around this time, Dr. Wily begins to resent Dr. Light due to living in the shadow of his colleague. Wily begins to see the possibilities of utilizing these robots built with AI, and around this time designs a robot factory somewhere in the whereabouts of the Pacific, plotting a way to conquer the world. In a fit of jealous rage, Wily steals the 6 master robots and reprograms them for his own intent. His motive, to recreate a world from his own vision, robots and humans coexisting under his own rule. Thus, the events of Mega Man 1 begin. Now, I do want to stress that the first time Westerners were introduced to the Mega Man franchise, there was a few questionable plot holes that probably never got tied up due to the story inside the North American instruction manual. The manual goes on to reveal Mega Man takes on the powerful leaders and, as stated, fighting forces of the Monsteropolis that even Capcom states is a strange, multifaceted land of robot-like humanoids. Yeah, so I'm not too sure where Monsteropolis is located, but the manual does go on to explain the origin of Mega Man and that Light proceeded to develop 6 additional humanoids. Here, they are all programmed to perform prescribed rituals. Rituals? And that Light's assistant Dr. Wily turns disloyal, reprogramming Dr. Light's humanoids, now hell-bent on controlling the world and its resources. Resisting reprogramming, Mega Man is chosen as the defender of the universe and its inhabitants. Mega Man dares to single-handedly penetrate 7 separate empires of Monsteropolis, eliminating the leaders and followers of these sovereignties. Penetrating? Who wrote this? Now, I'm fairly confident that if you clicked on my video, you have some prior knowledge regarding the Mega Man franchise. I didn't want this review to sound like the same old song and dance, typical YouTuber review, where I draw my conclusion is from a place of personal experience, taking the past and present events with the pros and cons of the franchise into consideration. Just what was the development team working with upon the time of release? What were the restrictions and what were the handicaps that the team may have been faced with designing a title? Well, compared to many games that were out around this time of Mega Man 1's release, it was quite revolutionary. You open the game with the option to essentially explore any of the 6 Robot Master domains, or should I now call them cities of Monsteropolis, and progress throughout the stage leading to that robot monster's lair. Upon defeating that stage boss, Mega Man acquires a corresponding power-up, a set of unique key powers, specific to that Robot Master's signature skill set. This, in my opinion, is a key factor that makes this series stand out and feel so special, being rewarded through gaining specific power-up advantages in a rock, paper, scissors style format where each Robot Master presents a unique strength or weakness, which in return affects opposing Robot Master's power, letting you travel through the stages in a variety of ways. These powers can also be used in certain areas of a stage that might require that specific skill to break through a wall or a certain obstacle, creating alternate paths or means of progression. This, to me, is the true hook that draws you into the series. Now, going back to navigating Mega Man, here the controls feel stiff and choppy, and at times can truly affect your gameplay when picking up items or maneuvering through specific areas. These instances can present lag that could ultimately get you in a sticky situation, with a game known for bottomless pits and spike beds for instant deaths. That's not saying that the stages aren't doable, but you need to remember that in Mega Man 1, every move you make needs to be extremely precise, and again, that's not bad game design, that's primitive game design. At the time of this game's release, the original 6 Robot Masters felt like your basic run-of-the-mill robots. Now looking back at their designs years later, they are a bit more on the simple side, yet truly iconic for their presentation. Their elemental structures truly complement one another. Where there's ice, there's fire, and where there's electric, there's ground. I wanted to stress, when it comes to the Mega Man 1 difficulty, a few key factors are that there is no energy tanks to refill your health. While going through the stage, you can manage to rack up energy through enemy drops, and in the event you die, depending on how far you progress, you will receive a checkpoint. However, this is where the limited advantages makes the game known for that true NES difficulty so many 90s kids speak of. It's just you, your trusty Buster, and your reflexes, and if you lose all your lives, you're going back to the beginning of the stage. There's no denying the hardest part of the entire game is the Yellow Devil. He not only has a ridiculous movement pattern, but your window to deal damage is so limited that you have a precise few moments to shoot his eye if and only if it opens in the right location. As you march forward to locate Wily, you come face to face with a Mega Man clone. Yes, Wily even went to great lengths to make a clone of Mega Man, as if the 6 stolen Robot Masters were not enough. As you progress through these Wily stages, you will have to come face to face with the 6 Robot Masters again. However, if you can get through the final gauntlet and fight Wily, he is definitely beatable. It's just going to take time, patience, and repetition. Believe me, you are going to die over and over, and not necessarily on Wily himself, but on the stage and gauntlet of robots leading up to the final corridor. It's easy to say that future installments in the mainline series are stronger games, but much of those claims are subjective, and again, my biggest takeaway is how well they were able to take advantage of the primitive hardware while giving us a game of this magnitude. Sure, the game has its flaws, but it's truly remarkable what the team at Capcom was capable of doing at the time of release. Now, with that being said, would Capcom even want to take another crack at something as complex as Mega Man? Well, in fact, we would get a sequel to Mega Man 2, but it wouldn't be till nearly 2 years later, in June of 1989, we received Mega Man 2 on the NES. So what was really the holdup, and what really took so long for us to finally receive this game? Well, I did play it growing up, so next time on the channel, we're going to be taking a deep dive into Mega Man 2, and continuing on with the Mega Man Marathon. So guys, thanks so much for joining me tonight, and I will see you guys next time here on Rockin' Cat Reviews. Have a great one.